How's it going, Mike?
How are you?
Being a coordinator, play caller, how many plays do you prefer to script for the beginning of a game?
Yeah, so done it a few different ways over the years and learned from some really good play callers. I think there's some guys I've been around that like were hard on the first plays. There's other guys that were like, okay, in general, and then there was someone kind of in between. So, yeah, I mean, we'll look at it. We kind of look at it. These are the things we like to start. A couple things. These are the things we like to kind of start the game with. And then there's other calls that I think, and I'm probably speaking for every coordinator, that, hey, we got to get these plays called in this game at some point. So kind of somewhere in the middle of all those. But, there's going up against good defense. So, and they're doing some, things that we think we know what they're going to do, but there's obviously first game of the year and new coordinator and all that. So we got to be ready for a lot of stuff and be flexible in that regard.
Following up on some of the guys that you learned those things from that you alluded to, who were some of those coaches that you learned from as a younger guy?
Well, yeah, I can just kind of, just from my whole career, just kind of go back and start with Ray Perkins was my college coach, who was also our play caller, and then at Tampa Bay when I went and coached with him there. And then, I actually worked on the defense side when I was with the Dolphins with my dad. But Ron Turner, with the offensive coordinator with the Bears, his brother Norv Turner, Chan Gailey, Dirk Cutter, all those guys had all their own little way of kind of getting to the same. They're getting to the same point. So, hopefully I've learned from all those guys and can apply that. I left that Pat Shermer. Sorry. Okay. Sorry, Pat.
You mentioned your dad, so I was just kind of curious. What sort of, when you think back to your time growing up with him and working with him, obviously, when you're coming up at this point in the year, just days before the first game, what's sort of the thing that sticks with you about how he approached this time of year heading into week one?
Oh, yeah. My dad was awesome for so many reasons, because he was my dad, number one, but just had such great perspective and, talked about always kind of moving forward and learning from the past, and you can't change the past and be better because of the past, and surround yourself with good people, have confidence in what you're doing because of the way you've prepared, and just kind of keep believing, in yourself and those guys around you. And I think those are the things that, just right offhand, that kind of stuck with me through the years. And I think, and I've also heard that from some other coaches too. It's not going to be easy. You got to be able to handle all the ups and downs, handle the what ifs, and kind of be the same guy, every day.
Hey, Mike, with Rasul back in the room now, being cleared to play, what does that do for your offense, and how do you kind of approach getting him carries and also trying to make sure you guys get the other running backs carries?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. Yeah, so we were kind of, as you guys asked all along, we were kind of preparing like he was going to, and, hopefully that he was going to be here, and we're thrilled that he is. And I just think it's going to be a good balance of having, and like I said, I'll lean on Coach Blackwell with that. He does a really good job. He's got a good feel for all those guys. And, we'll have certain things that we'll potentially have up for certain guys. But, the other thought process is we get a guy in there, and, if he's on a roll, stay on it. Stay on the roll with him in that regard. And we got to do a good job of being balanced, whether or not it's who's in the game as a halfback as far as what they're doing. But we have to be balanced as an offense, as far as running and throwing it and all that kind of stuff. And it's cliche but you really want to, and it's the opposite of the defense. You want to stay out of long yardage situations. You want to be able to make first downs on first and second down, but yet you have to have the ability to do that with all kinds of personnel groupings on the field.
On the interior of that offensive line, replacing everyone, what was the competition like this fall, and do you know the 5 you're going to go out on Sunday with?
Yeah, I mean, like Coach said, he'll announce all the depth chart. But yeah, I feel like, and I might have said this a couple weeks ago, just especially the last few weeks, the group that's come together, and I'm not just saying that the guys that the 5 that are going to be out there to start the game with. I think, there's that, those first 2 groups that we have, we feel comfortable with, and Lonnie's done a great job of having guys not just learn one position, but be able to, learn a couple positions, whether or not it's from right guard to left guard or potentially right guard and center or both tackles, because if you do that and you have flexibility in that regard, that can really help you out in case there's guys that, chin strap goes, they can't fix the chin strap for a whole game or something. You got another guy to come in there and play, so.
With Virginia Tech's defense, what have you learned about those guys and having some new faces there from a player standpoint and a coaching standpoint?
Yeah, so I mean, it's going to be kind of like every or most teams. You guys know better than I do. There's going to be a lot of personnel changes. We have to be able to kind of figure out how that whole thing unfolds in front of us. We might think it's going to be one way going into the game, but it might be different. But the one thing we do know with this group is these guys get after it. They get at they're fast to the football. They're aggressive. They're coached that way, and they don't shy away from anything. So we have to be ready for a lot of stuff. But we also have to feel confident about what we're doing and not necessarily. Yes, we got to know what's in front of us, but we need to make sure that we're taking care of our own business first.
What stood out to you about Cedric Surratt and how he's performed, and would you feel pretty good about him going out there on Sunday?
Yeah, he's one of a few freshmen that have done a really good job in training camp since they've been here and practiced hard and picked things up. And I think almost you have to be careful when you're in my shoes or really anybody on our staff. Just sometimes these guys are like they're doing some really good things, and you forget. You have a tendency because of the way they're progressing that you think that they're really kind of more experienced than they are. So you have to kind of keep that in mind. But it's been encouraging, and he's done a nice job.
Shane said yesterday that there's a chance that all 6, I believe, of those freshman receivers might get a little bit of playing time on Sunday. For you, with those guys on top of everybody else that's already been in the room, does it help or make it easier or harder for your game planning in terms of knowing that there's going to be so many bodies out there that might get rotated in?
No, it helps more so than anything. And, every now and then, obviously, you want to kind of get with a group and stay with it. But I think to have some young guys come in with the eagerness, with the attention to detail, and the focus that these guys have, and I think going back to Shed, he kind of falls into that category at the offensive line. I think those are what you want to see as a coach from your young guys, and really from all your players, but especially the young guys. And it provides us a little bit of flexibility in that position, but again, it's just kind of like we're trying to see what they're doing. We got a lot of new guys here that haven't played a snap of college football, or with our football team, and I think Shane's probably talked about that as well. So again, let's just dial in ourselves, and our job is to put guys in positions to do what they do best, and then once we get them in those positions. Hopefully they go out there and succeed and do well and get some confidence.
When a game's finished and someone hands you a stat sheet, what's the first thing you look at?
W or L. I kind of know that already, though. I really don't. I don't look at a lot of stats. I mean, they're all indicators. The number one thing we talk to our quarterbacks is the true judge of a quarterback is the scoreboard. And as you guys know, but they're all kind of indicators, and how many times did not just stats, but rushing yards, passing yards, time of possession, all those things that show up in that stat line, the team stats. But just, I'll look at where we run the pass overall, were we balanced, and then what was our efficiency, not necessarily average, but efficiency when we were running the ball or efficiency when we were throwing the ball. Third downs, yes, you want to be, the best teams every year that, usually in the SEC or the NFL are going to have really good third down percentage. But even better than that, you want to have fewer third downs if you can do that. So things like that we can look at and use as barometers for our coaching the next week.
I guess it's kind of a general question, but what are some of the final coaching points that you'll have for Lenoris before Sunday?
Yeah, just kind of like everybody on offense. Just have confidence because of the way you prepared. Don't get too high, don't get too low, and communicate. You know, you and the center are going to be the only two that touch the ball in every play. So, but you have to communicate, you know, with the offensive line. You got to communicate with the in the huddle, out of the huddle. We got to communicate, you know, in between series, and then you know, trust what you've been asked to do and trust yourself. All righty. Good seeing you.